if one thing fell through, this mission fails. They lose. The rebellion is done. Like, that is what's on stakes in this film, and the stakes are so high, and at the drop of a pin, everything's over, right? And it comes down to... Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of A Lost Plot, the podcast by storytellers for storytellers, so that we can tell better stories ourselves. As always, I'm your host, Maverick, and today we have back with us our co-host, Andrew, to review... We're back into Star Wars, ladies and gentlemen, and Andrew is so excited. That's right, we are going to review Rogue One today. The story by John Knoll and Gary Whitta? I don't know. My notes are bad.
Not George Lucas.
Not George Lucas. That's the important point. But is it? Is it not? Did he succeed or did he fail in passing this on to Disney? Did they actually hit it right one time? We'll talk about that today. But before we get to that, of course, we have to give due to everyone else. The screenplay was by Chris Weitz and Tony Gilroy and directed by Gareth Edwards. So a whole cast and crew of people involved in the storytelling production of this film. What are your initial thoughts and rating, Andrew, when you look at Rogue One?
That is probably one of the best things we've gotten out of Disney Star Wars, unironically. I'd put it probably right below Andor. Yeah, I'd probably put it right up there with Clone Wars Season 7. Like, those two things that we've gotten. Yeah, you're making fun of me, but Clone Wars Season 7, the finale to Clone Wars is insane, okay? Like, as goofy as a lot of the Clone Wars episodes can be, and, like, how it was made for kids, they recognized that people had gotten older with it, so. But yeah, Rogue One, I think it's a great story. I think it captures the essence of what the rebellion is in a really great way and really set the building blocks for Andor to thrive. Because Andor literally just takes what Rogue One gave us and explores it as much as possible. You don't get as much of an you don't get as much of that explored in Rogue One, right? Because it's a movie, you don't have as much time. But you definitely have the elements of extremists, the rebellion, how people view the rebellion, with Jyn Erso being the main character and not really being a fan of either the rebellion or the Empire. So you have great themes here, great character development. I ended up giving it a 7.1.
I turned on this film. I haven't seen this film in years, let me just say. All right? I turned on this film. I started watching it. And right after that introductory scene, you know, where Jyn Urso, yeah, sorry. Where Jyn Erso runs away, and then you see Cassian meeting with his informant. He shoots his informant in the back, and I immediately went, oh yeah, that's right, this is why I like this movie. So, you know, I don't know what that says about me, except for that I like that when the conflict builds up and the tension is like conflicting characters, so good. I gave this movie a full-on 7.1. So we are right at the same spot here.
Okay, so he wasn't going to do something mischievous. He was just laughing at the craziness there.
Overall thoughts was that this film is one of the better things that has come out in Star Wars in general. Even looking at the original 6, I would say that this story has a lot of things going for it that puts it even above some of those original pieces of content that George Lucas put out. Granted, I don't think it exists outside the Star Wars universe. If you don't have some semblance of what Star Wars is before watching this film, I think it will be a little harder for you to be like, why do we care so much about this? I think you get a little more of a running start if at least you watched episode 4 or episode 3 or something else like that. Can it stand on its own? Yes. Is it as good? I'm not sure. I'm not evaluating it based on that today. Today I'm just evaluating it based off of a casual observer of Star Wars who, you know, relatively enjoys it, and based off of the 9 points, which we always review things on in this podcast. So if you want to check that out, www.alostplot.com. You can find out how you can review movies on your own using the same system we use today. Anyways, we're moving on to that opening scene, right? Oh, wait, no, we're not, because let's just say you're listening to this and you've never watched the movie. You need to know what this movie's about. So, Andrew, why don't you give the people the summary of what Rogue One is about?
Yes, give me like 1 second. I have this thing.
I'm not even gonna lie, I was so surprised we got the exact same rating. I don't know that we've ever gotten exactly the same rating before.
I think we've been away by like 1 point before, but yeah. Also, I will say I do agree with the notion that this is even one of the better Star Wars projects. I'd probably put this up there with like Empire and Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it beats Revenge of the Sith, but it's definitely
No, I don't. I'd
it's
probably put it
definitely
third.
up there. Yeah.
So, what is this movie about? It is a period of civil wars in the galaxy. A brave alliance of underground freedom fighters has challenged the tyranny and oppression of the awesome galactic empire,
This
striking
can't go
from
on
a
for
fortress
more than
hidden
like
among
2
the
minutes,
billion
bro.
stars of the galaxy. It's the title scroll for episode 4. It's not going to last that long. You can't ruin it. Let me finish. Striking from a fortress hidden among the billion stars of the galaxy, rebel spaceships have won their first victory in a battle with the powerful Imperial Starfleet. The Empire fears that another defeat could bring 1,000 more solar systems into the rebellion, and Imperial control over the galaxy would be lost forever. To crush the rebellion once and for all, the Empire is constructing a sinister new battle station, powerful enough to destroy an entire planet. Its completion spells certain doom for the champions of freedom. Oh, wait a minute. I think that was the original one. It's the wrong one, dang it!
That's hilarious. Holy crap. Bro goes to read a summary, reads the wrong one.
It was the original one that George Lucas wrote. Dang it.
Oh, wow.
What a bomb!
Too far back in the lore. Wow.
I was like, something about this doesn't sound right.
You're like, I've watched this hundreds of times.
I've seen Rogue One at least a dozen times. Oh, wait.
Let's talk about the opening scroll for episode
4. It was right! That was the wrong one. Yeah, that's. I was reading it going, this doesn't sound right. It's during the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard the starship. Spoiler alert, the movie ends with Princess Leia. And can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. Okay, there we go. We know he's going to leave the other one in there because he wants to make fun of me, but I don't care because, now you guys know what the original one was meant to be. That was intentional. Anyways, that's what the movie's about.
Okay. Yeah. So if you don't know anything about Star Wars, hopefully you got something out of that.
For those of you who don't know what the opening title crawl, this movie was made after all of the original 6 came out, and each Star Wars movie has an opening title crawl in which there is basically a summary of the events leading up to it to set you up as the audience. It is a uniquely Star Wars thing. In episode 4, the title crawl describes a group of rebels that go to a military base that is the Empire's, and they steal the Death Star plans. This entire movie is based off of that one paragraph in the opening title crawl for episode 4.
And probably the sentence from Mon Mothma, where she says many Bothans died to achieve this information.
No,
but
that was episode 6.
Oh, you're right. You know what? You're right.
They'll
make a movie about that at some point, I'm sure. But for now, we're talking about Rogue One, so it's called Rogue 2.
That would be tragic.
I mean, the creativity has really gone down in Hollywood, so I wouldn't expect anything more from them than that. But
true.
Before we get ahead of ourselves on fictional stories that don't exist, let's talk about the movie that does exist. Starting with that opening scene, right? You have it start off with Jyn Erso and her father and her mother, Galen Erso, and whatever the mother's name is, I apologize, but she dies like within the first 5 minutes.
I don't even know her name, bro.
Tragic.
She exists for like 2 seconds.
Right. It's tragic.
I think it starts with an L. Anyways, go ahead.
Anyways, so we're going to...
Lyra. I was right. It did start with an L. Go ahead.
This is gonna be a terrible episode.
Okay, you know what?
Okay.
We're locking in. We're gonna do
Yeah.
this movie respect.
Yes. We're really not trying hard enough to give you the respect you deserve, Rogue One. I apologize. You want to talk about that opening scene? We get introduced to Jin as a child, and then we get introduced to Cassian when he's getting the information from the informant. I think those two pieces introduce us to the core of the story pretty well. What are your thoughts on those characters and those introductory scenes?
There's a couple of things here. One, just in terms of my impressions of the opening scene in general, I think it's pretty good. I think the way that they introduce Jin Urso, they give you all of the necessary information, and it's the idea of showing, not telling, right? They don't tell you that she's a criminal and that she is this like tough and rough person and doesn't like people. They show you she's in an imperial prison. She's being taken to another imperial prison when she's saved. She's the daughter of the lead scientist for the Death Star. Now, granted, I'd have to go back and look at this, but I don't actually think they call it the Death Star or tell you what the project is. But you know it's important, and you know that Galen Erso is crucial to its development.
Right, you mean like in the first scene?
Yeah. And
Yes.
so as the audience, I mean, obviously going into this, you know, if you've seen trailers, what it is. But if you've never seen a trailer and you haven't seen like much of Star Wars content, you probably wouldn't know what they were talking about until later on in the movie.
Yeah.
That said, I think they introduced her character well. They set up the stage for her. When it comes to Cassian, I think this is my second point. The question you're asking yourself at this point is, who's the main character of the movie? Jin, I think, is the main character. I think Cassian is probably one of the strongest supporting characters I've seen in a movie, though. There is just so much there for Cassian's character that an argument could be made that he's a second lead role.
Right. Well, and I think that's the important point, is that like he's developed so well with his own motivations, and they're integrally tied to her storyline and what he needs to do, that case can be made. Now, granted, it all does revolve around her, but it's still very compelling for his own motives.
And this is one of the things that I think is unique about Star Wars, right? Is you have this dynamic typically where you have 2 to 3 characters that could be a lead role. You've got that with Obi-Wan and Anakin. You've got it with Luke and Han. I don't know that Leia necessarily has enough to be a lead role in 4, 5, and 6. She's a pretty strong supporting role, I guess. But I think that of all of the Star Wars movies, the where this one really shines is the fact that if Jin Urso wasn't so obviously the main character because everything revolves around her, I think you'd be hard-pressed to tell which of them is the main character.
Sure, like I get your argument. I think the only issue with that is like everything revolves around her so much that if you take her out, it's like, where does the story go? But yeah, I get the argument.
Yeah. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the opener. I think the opener is great. I think the way they introduced Cassian, phenomenal.
Yeah, the way they introduce Cassian and the way they introduce Jin Erso are both great. One, because you have motive and like critical backstory developed early on for Jin, right? You understand why she both kind of hates the Empire, but at the same time, she goes, I'm doing my own thing, right? And having that backstory of her father disappearing, her mother dying, all this stuff creates a nuance that you see her really, even though you have a gap between when she's a child and when she's there, it's like probably 15 years, I believe it is. So she's in her mid-20s or so when
she's supposed to be 21 when it takes place, I think. So yeah, it's about 13, 14 years or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So she has this long time gap, but you get a lot of life breathed into those years in how she responds to things, right? How she has grown so much in that experience and the nuances she takes from that. And I'm sure we'll get into that more as we discuss, but like the opening scene sets the stage for that super well. And it's of course in the Star Wars universe, so you get the Star Wars universe reestablished with the demonstration of the Dark Troopers, and what's the villain's name? He's right there for me. Kesrick. Oh my gosh.
Krennic.
Krennic. Yeah, Krennic. Orson Krennic. So, you get introduced to all these key characters right off the bat. And then, of course, Cassian Andor. Like I said, right off the bat, you don't get this guy who's like, oh, I am a knight in shining armor. I am here to save everyone. I'm here to kiss the girl and save the day. No, instead you get this guy who says, oh, don't worry, we'll get out of here safe, and then immediately shoots his informant in the back. And for me, it's like, yes, this is a character who has flaws, who has an ability to grow and learn and demonstrate a person who learns to be a better person in the middle of the story. And I think that that's like important key. If you've watched Andor at all, they have another, even in my opinion, better demonstration of that character in it. I'm sorry, Skarsgård is so good. Just go watch Andor. I love it. Anyways, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about Rogue One because, this is what the podcast is about. So, we're moving on. Let's talk about the main character. What are your thoughts on... I kind of talked a little bit about Jyn Erso and her motivations, but you want to delve more into that? Delve into how her motive is compelling or not compelling in this film? What's great about her? What's not? Give the reasons, Andrew. I mean, you gave it a 7.1, so clearly there's something there.
Yeah. I think Jyn as a character represents an unseen faction within Star Wars during the time of the Empire, at least leading up to this point. And you got it. You get it very, very little in the animated film or animated show Rebels, but you can't expect people to watch that, which is why I would still count it as unseen. Like, we just haven't seen it yet. Definitely not on the big screen. And it is the group of people who view the rebellion in a negative light. Like, they don't like the Empire, but they also don't like the rebellion. They just want to live their life. And this is the group that Jyn Erso would fit into, right? She was raised by the rebellion, and she understands their purpose, their intention, but she sees them as just as tyrannical as the Empire is. They ruined her life just as much as the Empire did. And so to her, they're both the bad guys, which is why she has no sympathy for the rebellion's cause or what they're attempting to do. And that's her journey in this movie, is finding out what does the rebellion truly stand for, and learning that just because certain people claimed to stand for that idea doesn't mean that they actually represented that. And so you get that with like the character of Saw Gerrera, right? Saw Gerrera wants the same thing as the rest of the rebellion, but she was raised by an extremist. He's literally just a terrorist. That's Saw Gerrera's character. And being raised by him, she connects the dots between Saw Gerrera and the rebellion. And the rebellion is attempting to be uniquely different from Saw Gerrera. And even within the rebellion, you get characters who do not care about human life. And you get that. I forget who the guy's name is, but it's the one general who tells Cassian to kill her dad. It's like they as long as the end is, it's just the end justifies the means, right? As long as they meet their goals, they don't care who dies in the end. And they see human life as what is the word? Expendable. There we go. That was what I was looking for. And so Jyn Erso's character, and that's why at the end of the movie, like she has the line, "Rebellions are built on hope," and it's kind of, I think it's meant to signify that she's come to realize what the rebellion is actually meant to stand for, and why she goes, rogue with her group of rebels at the end, because it's like, no, if the rebellion is meant to stand for, if it's built on hope and this idea that we have to fight back against these guys, then we can't, it's not about the politics of this board, if you will, of rebel leaders. So Kind of got
Yeah.
lost on a tangent there, but
No, I think that's fair. And pointing out that Saw Gerrera was this character who was the impetus for her understanding of what the rebellion was is somewhat important, right? Because she does feel betrayed by the rebellion and the Empire just killed her parents. So I don't know that betrayed, but more just like they slaughtered her parents, so she has motive against them. Um, I think Saw Gerrera, he's not like a huge character in the film, but analyzing him briefly is appropriate here. He's this character who, I mean, even just on the meta analysis of this, right? I appreciated this film for the very fact that it showed a nuanced view of the Star Wars universe, other than having that very generic, here is the resistance to tyranny and here is tyranny, right? And those two forces coming to clash against each other. In this case, you have a more nuanced view of, oh, there's splinter factions here. Oh, there's people who are saying the end justifies the means, kind of like what you were just saying just now, right, with that other general, and how there's these different ideas that play into that, and you see that bleed into how Cassian acts, right, or how other characters act, and how Jin has to push back on that in her own actions, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, in this review. But like that is all of this nuance is what makes this film so good, I think, because then you have characters that bleed from that are each individually motivated in their own ways. They have their own reasons for doing what they're doing, for being involved in the rebellion or the Empire, or whatever side they're on, and pushing forward for that cause. So, super great. And that's the motive you get with Jin Urso from the start, right? And she has this very almost like longing for her father, which is pseudo some level of like as if her father died, even though he didn't. This idea that it's like, oh, I see him with a nostalgic eye, and I wish he was around, but he's not. And she really gets pushed into the film beyond just you're a captive and you have to do what we say and then we'll let you go, right? That's the impetus for her being involved with the rebellion, right? They free her from the Empire and say, you work for us for this one mission and then we'll let you go free, right? She goes to do that, and then she sees this hologram of him basically speaking to her, even though it's technically to Saw Gerrera, saying, you are the light of my life, and I want you to be, free, and I am afraid of this weapon, but I built this for the cause of being able to fight against tyranny and fight back against the Empire by my own small way, right? And being the small shout against the wind, if you will, right? In his method. So you get this inspiring motive of a man who's not really that strong, but someone who believes fiercely in what he's doing and proceeds to demonstrate that to the people around him and how he pushes them forward toward the cause that he believes in. So that's what you get as the motive for Jyn Erso, as she takes on the mantle of her father and carries that forward and says that I need to carry this purpose as well. So I think there's multiple ways you can take that, especially in regards to family legacy, especially in regards to personal motive being tied to a deceased relative is kind of the impetus you get here. Multiple ideas, but she has a lot of strong motive pushing her into the plot. So super good. Really thought she was a compelling character, and there's a lot of reason for her to be a compelling character. So, great. Also, you see us just as a side meta analysis again, fangirling over a female lead because female leads aren't inherently bad. Female leads can actually be amazing, as seen in this story. It's not a problem with female leads, it's a problem with plots. Anyways, going back into the plot, what were your thoughts on the film, Andrew, as we look at the flaws of her as a character, and the tension she feels as the story progresses?
I had a whole line of thought on this.
This
when you were
is,
talking,
Andrew, this is your whole
say.
time to shine. I know you like this movie. I know you're a fan of Star Wars. I'm surprised you're not just like going off.
You made me lose my train of thought, and then you called me out on the spot, and I'm like, dang it.
Absolute Star Wars nerd, and all I get is I blame you. What on earth?
I need to rethink my life.
I probably said more on this podcast than you have at this point.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Okay, there we go. What? What?
How did that get you, Dar?
I wasn't even paying attention to you.
Okay,
I was like
okay.
racking. I was going through the files in my brain, and then I was like, "Oh, boom, found it!" And that was actually a picture of Darth Vader that reminded me. The thing that I think is so important about Jyn's character, in connection specifically with Cassian and the rest of the rebellion and the arc that she goes on, is she is going on a journey of discovery about what the rebellion is meant to stand for. The reason Cassian's character is so interesting with this interplay is Cassian's character doesn't even know what the rebellion's about either. And he talks about this, right? He says, all I've known is the rebellion. I have my parents his parents died, right?
Right.
And he's become this assassin. That's his job. It's just to take out targets.
Right.
And he doesn't ask questions.
Just as a side, like he says he's been part of the rebellion since he was 6. Right?
Yeah.
Like
this
has
whole life.
been his whole life. Yeah.
He doesn't know anything else. He doesn't even necessarily, like, if you take this to the fullest extent, right? A character like Cassian doesn't necessarily understand why the Empire is truly evil. He views it through the eyes of simply, I am a cog in the machine that is the rebellion, and we fight against the Empire, and I don't ask questions. And that's why when that general comes and tells him, take out this target, no questions asked, he does it. He agrees to do it, rather.
Sure.
Now, I don't know that I want to be clear. I'm not saying he has absolutely no idea why the Empire is bad.
I think he's also demonstrating a contrast to how you even address life and the things that you're addressing, right? So, like, a big theme, getting into themes now, which it seems like you're going that direction, so I think it's appropriate to bring it up, is this idea of a cause, right? A meaning, something to fight for beyond yourself is a very big aspect of this film. And that's one of the reasons that you see Jyn Erso reject the rebellion very early on in the film, as she is raised by it and says, no, I don't want anything to do with this. Why? Because it's cost her so much, and she understands the sacrifice that comes with that and the pain that comes with that. She also understands the pain that comes with the Empire. And so what she says, I'm going to be my own person. I don't want to have anything to do with either of these parties, right? In the case of Cassian, you have the aspect of he takes more of a militaristic lifestyle where you join a cause and you become a cog in the machine, right? You accept your role and you do it without asking questions, not because it's necessarily like wrong. In fact, he very much believes it's the right thing to do, but he also feels himself being emotionally scarred in the process because he sees himself doing things he really knows he shouldn't be doing, right? Perfect example is the thing he starts the film off doing, which is taking his informant, his quote-unquote friend and ally, and shooting him in the back, literally, in order to get away. So there's aspects to this where you see one side that says, I want nothing to do with this because it hurts me, and then she ends up believing in the cause, and someone who's been part of the cause the entire time, but has scars associated with it because they have simply become a soldier in the ranks. So, they provide that contrast very well, once again, adding to the nuances of the universe, but also adding a contrast to why do you fight for something, right? What is the meaning behind what you stand for? And that is contrasted in these two primary characters in the film. Anyways, go ahead to your point.
So I think this movie does a really good job at something we've talked about in previous podcasts, right? And this actually comes up with Rey specifically. The idea of your motivations changing so drastically, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do it so well because the thing that triggers a change in Jyn Erso's character's motivation is so massive that it makes sense why she would change. And that thing is the video or the hologram of her father, right?
Mm-hmm.
She goes on just this one mission. She's just meant to get them in contact with Saw Gerrera. And she even says, all right, I've got you an audience. I'm out. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
The moment her dad comes on the screen, keep in mind, she hasn't seen him since she was like 7 or 8 years old. Maybe even 6. If it was 15 years, yeah, she would have been 6 years old when he was quote unquote gone or dead to her, as she says early on in the film. Her mom's dead. She's with Saw Gerrera. And it's not even, and she talks about in the beginning of the film, it's easier for her to imagine that he's dead than to think about the fact that he's alive.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just a video of him saying, hi, daughter, here's information. This is a video of him giving her something she needed for the past 15 years of her life.
Right.
Knowing that her dad didn't just abandon her for this imperial machine. Because at 6 years old, she doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't understand why her dad leaves. But it fills this necessary, this void that it's a necessary fill for that. And her own psyche for her. And so when that is filled, all of a sudden it's like, then I have to do this. My dad's life would be a waste at this point if I'm not going to do this. Everything my dad fought for, all that pain that I went through for 15 years would be for nothing if we don't go on this mission. And so to her, it takes everything you've built up, that previous motivating factor, the previous traumas that she suffered, all of that, and it builds into this complete shift in her character. And it's just like, it's done so well. And, you know, Disney could really take notes from themselves on how to create character shifts. But, you know, apparently they just struck gold with this one and went never again.
Let me just provide a contrast here, right? And this kept playing in the back of my mind as I was thinking about this film, you know, taking my own little notes. The question about this is not just, is there a cause worth fighting for, right? But it's like, do you believe it? And this becomes a crucial question and becomes a tipping point, I think, in a lot of scenarios that expands beyond just this film in particular. And the example that I kept coming back to in my mind is the example of Eddard Stark, right? Who is an incredibly noble character who really believes in what he's doing. But at the end of the day, he's questioned about his morals, questioned about what he's fighting for and his integrity, and saying, is it worth it, right? And you're going to lose so much if you don't give up your morals for the sake of your family or your cause or, you know, whatever it is. What do you value most? And in that, question, he has to make a decision. And spoiler alert, Eddard Stark makes the wrong decision and decides to compromise his morals for the sake of trying to save his family. Guess what? It doesn't work. He loses everything. Literally, he dies. So, you know, that was like the message of his character in the middle of the story. In this case, you're having a similar, not outcome, but a similar situation of what do you value most? Because in the case of Galen Erso, he has lost everything. He's lost his family. His daughter is nowhere to be seen. He's not really part of the rebellion anymore. In fact, he's working for the very people he was trying to not work for, who are trying to tyrannize everyone, you know, potentially murder everyone with this new super weapon. He doesn't know exactly what to do, but he decides to stick to his morals and stick to his guns no matter what. And that is what is portrayed in the hologram that he sends to his daughter, where he says, I really miss you. I've lost so much in this process. I am so sorry. But this cause is so important that it is worth everything that I've sacrificed. And I need you to carry this forward into the next cause, right? And so that is what you get, is someone who believes so strongly in the mission that they are holding to that they urge you to carry it forward even after all the loss they've personally experienced. So, you know, I think that was just a huge demonstration. And even for her, it's like she's lost so much as well. She's lost her father for most of her life and all of these other things too, not to mention everything we said previously. And she takes that, and it's basically her father has been resurrected from the dead and says, here is my life work. If you don't take this forward, it's for nothing. take it because you must, and she does.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a compelling situation to be put in, especially as the daughter of the man who has come back from the dead to give it to you, that it's so good. You know, it's so good.
Yes. It's so great. It's phenomenal. And I remember watching this in theaters. Shoot, I think it came out before episode 8, because they released 7, then Rogue One, then 8, then Solo, then 9. And I think it was like 2017 when this came out. So I would have been...
This was 2016, but yes, very close.
2016. Okay, so I would have been 13 years old, 14 years old. No. I'm an idiot. Yeah, 13,
Baby
14 years
Andrew
old.
without a mustache.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, this is awesome. And I've watched this so many times since then, and every time it doesn't disappoint. And it seems like that, where it's like, wow, this is good. And so, yeah, I mean, I will also say he does kind of express the sentiment that if not me, then who? They're going to find someone to make this weapon. And so I can fight back against the Empire and just like throw a hissy fit, and probably get killed. But like, my time is so much better used just accepting my fate, accepting that I'm probably never seeing you again, that my life's worth is found in creating a weakness for this battle station and getting at least somebody to send the message to the rebellion.
Right.
Even if that somebody is Saw Gerrera, like, that's just, it's the person he knows is going to probably get that information and be most willing to do something with it, I guess.
Right. Well, it's also not clear that he has a ton of connections really to the rebellion.
Yeah.
And Saw Gerrera appears to be one of the few that we do know he has a connection to. So it might be the only person he knows to reach out to. We don't really know. He might not know that he's an extremist at this point. But he does know is he needs to get that information to someone. And that's what he sends out into the void.
Yeah. Now, Saw Gerrera's character, he shows up in a lot of different projects. He's actually one of the few characters that is originally introduced in the Clone Wars. And I think there can be a lot of discussion around Saw Gerrera's character. I think they do a pretty good job of just having him as a side character, and this being the conclusion to his arc for those who have followed him since the inception of his character, right? He's created in Clone Wars, he shows up in Rebels, and as time progresses, if you followed his character and you've seen all the pieces, he's a phenomenal character. He's great. He even shows up in the Jedi Fallen Order video game too.
Nice.
But I mean, his character starts out as a freedom fighter. His sister gets killed, and so he starts to develop these tendencies of being more extreme in the way he goes about things. This is the culmination of that, where he is truly just gone at this point. He's not even fully man. He's like half man, half robot at this point. He doesn't care who dies. You get that even in his own terrorist cell, right? They don't care about civilian casualties at all. And so I think they do a good job of having him in the movie and showing his character and giving him some motivations, but he also doesn't need a ton of explanation, right? It's totally understandable that there's going to be extremist factions in a world where there exists a rebellion and an empire.
100%.
But then also, for someone who has followed his story, it's very fulfilling to see the end of it. I just wanted to bring up Saw Gerrera there real quick, because we're talking about this scene, and this does happen to be like the last time we see Saw Gerrera before he dies. And his last line is, "Save the rebellion, save the dream." He's like, because it's not just Galen Erso also passing the baton on to Jin. It's Saw Gerrera passing that baton on as well, right?
Right. Well, isn't he the one that ends up saying initially to Jin anyways, the idea that rebellions are built on hope? Or it's around that time. And so this is the initial inception of that idea. Even though he's an extremist, he pushes that idea into our mind that, like, sure, we might be fighting for what appears to be a fruitless cause, but that is the basis, the kernel of truth that an entire dynasty might fall on.
So anyways, that scene, pivotal for Jin's character. I think at that point in the movie, her character's pretty dead set on what she needs to do. And I think her arc, for the most part, is on a decline at that point, I would argue.
Sure. Well, it becomes like, for the most part, it does start to become like, how much are you willing to press your metal, if you will, right? Which is relevant to the themes of this film specifically, just because the question is like, what is a cause worth fighting for? What is a cause worth dying for? And this film is taking that to its full conclusion, right? So thematically, you actually see those continue to be developed in a physical sense throughout the rest of the film. But in regards to her emotional change, her emotional change is done at this point, right? She has come to the conclusion. I mean, you could maybe make the argument that she hasn't fully changed until she sees her father die, which is the next scene-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, we're pretty much there.
Yeah. And I think at this point in the movie is where we shift to Cassian's arc, kind of getting to the point where he's going to start shifting to. Because if you break the movie into halves, you have the first half, which is Jyn Erso kind of coming to the point where she's willing to fight for the rebellion. Cassian Andor in the second half, starting with the assassination attempt, or the assassination he's been assigned, of Galen Erso, and then concluding with him joining Jyn on their mission at the end, is kind of his arc as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is one of the reasons I think, actually, because like thinking through, right, what makes Cassian's character, what makes this movie so good in the sense that it is able to develop this side character, I think it could also be just the fact that they're focusing on his character solely at this point. Like, Jyn has already decided where she's going at this point, which means they can devote their time to developing Cassian. That said, I don't want to move on to Cassian until we've fully explored Jyn. I don't know if you had anything else to say. I mean, I've pretty much given my thoughts on her.
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is, like, similar to what I've already said, right? And she wants to see her father. Her father's been resurrected in her mind, and so she wants to see the full manifestation of that, right? Which is why they go to the planet where he's working. And, well, to some degree. Also, Cassian's like, I need to go there for work because my work says to kill this guy. So,
that's he doesn't tell her that. He tells her they're saving him.
Right. He gives her ulterior motive. Once again, having his own motives for doing something.
Yep.
So it's great in regards to individual motivations of each of the characters there, and then you see it terminate in Galen Erso actually dying, right? Which fully tips Jyn Erso into the I am part of the rebellion. I am taking on the cause of my father, right? All of that motivation fully manifests itself. And you see that at the military meeting where she goes, we need to attack the vault, where they keep all the information for the Death Star, and everyone else is like debating whether or not that should actually happen. And she says, screw this, I'm doing this anyways, and goes off with everyone else to complete the mission. So, getting a little bit ahead of where we're at with Cassian, but her arc is pretty much where it needs to be. You can make the argument, but yeah, we're there. I think it's fair to move on to Cassian at this point because we've sort of discussed it. I mean, the themes are just so strong, right? And they're interrelated, they're interconnected. Even though each character is uniquely motivated, they still demonstrate an aspect of the themes in a very relevant way. And so,
yeah,
Cassian has been relevant to this conversation. He will continue to be relevant, but I do want to get a full, fleshed out thoughts from you on what you think of him. So now's a great time.
And by the way, I will also say, one of the reasons this movie got a 7.1 for me and not higher is simply because of the revelations portion of the rating system.
100%.
There's just not really any major revelations here, other than maybe the fact that there's a weakness to the Death Star. But that's not getting full points either way. And so that took the biggest chunk. Everything else is just like small little tidbits off there because in my mind, it's not the best that I've ever seen, sort of thing. That said, though,
sure.
I just want to clarify that because it sounds like we're praising the movie a bunch. So,
yeah, and a 7 is a great rating, right?
Yeah,
have not been giving out sevens very much recently. A lot of
True.
trash ratings have been given out recently. So a 7 is a refreshing thing for me personally. I'm like, oh my gosh, I basically love this movie because it's a 7.1. So
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, it is a high rating for us.
Yeah.
And that's somewhat intentional. Once you get to an 8, that's basically a perfect without having a crazy plot twist, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, go ahead.
That said, we can talk about Cassian now. Cassian, probably my favorite character in this movie.
Thank
He's
goodness you get
just,
2 whole seasons of him, bro.
I know. When I found out they were making a show, I was like, that's crazy. And then I was like, wow, I love his character even more.
And it
Disney
was
didn't
actually
screw it up.
good.
I know, it's crazy. It just happens to be like, unironically, of all the new characters Disney has created since buying Lucasfilm, Cassian's probably still my favorite character, and he's the one that they haven't botched up yet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Facts.
thank you, Disney, for not being retarded all the time. Um, that said, there's just so much going on here for Cassian, right? He is this character who is become desensitized to violence. It's just his job at this point. And you don't even get the sense that it necessarily bothers him till later on in the movie when he kind of opens up to Jin and he's like, "Yeah, it does bother me, but it's my job. It's what I'm meant to do." And you almost get the sense towards the end in Cassian's mind, if he doesn't do this, then what purpose does his life have? And I think that's this is a major theme throughout the movie, right? It's what is life's purpose specifically for these characters? What gives their life meaning? And for some characters, it's the rebellion. For Cassian, up until this point, the thing that gave his life meaning was just doing his job, following
Mm-hmm.
orders. And he realizes he doesn't want that to be his life's meaning. He wants there to be an altruistic reason why he fights for the rebellion. There needs to be a greater good that he's fighting for other than just let me rephrase. There needs to be a reason why all of these deaths are justified. All of these lives he's taken. There has to be a better reason than just it's my job and we're fighting for the rebellion. And he starts to question things. And so it's like in his mind as the viewer, what I'm getting from this mission is the first one where he truly feels like the lives that are being risked for a truly good cause. Whereas before it was like, oh, we're just killing this person so they don't leak information. We're just killing this person so that I can survive. Um, and this mission is Cassian's moment for truly fighting for something that he can say with all of his heart that he believes in.
And for
Um,
the audience, just to be clear, right, you have sort of 3 stages to this plot, right? It starts off with them taking Jin to meet this guy Saw Gerrera, and then the second stage is them going to save, quote unquote, slash assassinate this character Garen Urso, and the final stage is them breaking into the vault to steal the Death Star plans and then transmit them to the rebellion. So when he's coming to this third stage, that's what Andrew is talking about.
yeah.
But
And
go
to
ahead,
be clear,
keep
the
going.
first stage of this movie, right? You don't really see a shift in Cassian's character. He's just going about his business. The second stage is where you see the first pivotal shift. Because he is now seeing Jin's shift in perspective. And he sees this character who wanted nothing to do with the rebellion, now giving it her all. This is her life's purpose now. And he's starting to question like what is giving her this motivation, and it causes him to hesitate when he's supposed to take the shot. And then it terminates in him going on this mission and giving his own life in the cause of the rebellion. And why I think it's such a powerful message, especially in Cassian's state, right? The beginning of the movie starts with him taking another life to save his own. This movie ends with him giving his life to save countless others. And so his arc comes full circle where he's unwilling to even risk his life to save someone else, right? Because you could arguably have escaped while saving that guy. There was no guarantee he was going to
Sure.
die. It didn't look good, but he the thing is, he took his life without hesitation. There was no second thought there. He didn't even like just shoot him in the back. He reassured him and said, "Oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be all right." Boom, shoots him in the back. He goes from that to willingly laying down his life, defying his superiors for the hope that he can save millions, if not billions, of innocent lives.
Right.
So, yeah, I think his character is awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's especially accentuated by the fact that as he's realizing that Jyn has gone on this own journey, right, where she has come to realize and agree with the messages and ideas of the rebellion, and he's starting to question, why am I doing this? He is threatened at that same time with this idea that the rebellion may no longer exist. And this entire thing he's been fighting for, doing all these terrible things in his life that he's been justifying under the guise that it's for a good cause without really thinking deeply about what that cause is about to be taken from him. And not only from him, but from all these other people he's worked with for years and years and years. And so he looks and sees an opportunity not just to maintain that cause, but to in some ways redeem his past for himself and all of these other people he's worked with by going on this mission that might be a suicide mission, right? There is some relative acknowledgement that could be a very dangerous path to go down. He goes, I would rather do that, right? And contribute my cause and my life to something that I have believed in, do believe in, and much more now believe in after having made these personal decisions than I would simply dissolving this after doing all of these terrible crimes, right? For the sake of a cause that will now cease to exist. So I think that they provide a good contrast there as well, just in regards to this is the pivotal point. If he doesn't make this decision now, he will never have this opportunity again, and the entire rebellion is gone. So it's great, yeah. Once again, so much nuance in how you can build things and analyze things here. They do it well. We could go on for hours. We're not going to, right? Because this is just a podcast analyzing films. But needless to say, the two key characters in this film, Jyn Erso, and also for Cassian Andor, are well developed, and they're well developed for a reason, because they're both going through their own individual arcs, but at the same time intricately involved in developing the same themes of what does it mean to be your own individual, to have a cause worth fighting for, and to give your life for the sake of that cause, and is it worth it, right? And they both come to the same conclusion, coming from totally opposite directions. So, super good with Cassian. I really can't say anything beyond that. Can't say anything more about Jyn other than, I mean, at this point, you know how it ends, and if you know anything about Star Wars, you know how it ends. Everyone gives their life for the sake of bringing the Death Star plans to the rebellion, for the sake of giving them that small inch of hope that they can actually stop the tyranny in the galaxy. So,
yeah, I think these two characters are unironically like what made one of, if not the thing that make this movie so phenomenal. Just the way that they're developed and the way that they interact with the themes and the messages portrayed in this movie, and the ways that their characters' motivations shift and change throughout the movie, because they're not just given a reason, it's a very believable reason. Like us as the audience watching this, like I watched it last night and I was going, wow, that, like, as in someone watching this, someone who's 21 years old myself, I can totally see
you're
myself.
an old man.
Yeah, you know what? That's crazy considering you're like 10 years older than me. My point is, watching this, putting myself in her shoes, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, right? If your dad is gone for your entire life and you get this message, like, I'm 100% joining the rebellion, bro.
Well, you're also, very patriotic in your personal beliefs, so that makes sense.
Sure. I'm trying to put myself in this person's shoes, right?
Sure.
I could totally see myself becoming apathetic towards a revolutionary cause if that cause had cost me everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like thinking about, I asked myself, what is another motivator that could get me involved in this? There are very few, and I think they used a very powerful one to do this.
Right. Well, it even does beg the question for even the generic audience of a film like this. Like, what is a cause that you would be willing to give everything for, right? Be willing to sacrifice your entire life to because you believe so strongly in this. And is there even anything like that? Right. And
Yeah.
you might think you have something like that and then look at it and say, maybe this isn't worth it. You know, you have that inflection point like Cassian does. I mean, I believe strongly in the idea that the themes of films are not amoral, right? You take those with you, even in a small way, as you go about your daily life. So it's good themes to take with you and good ideas, and they develop those very well. But no, you go ahead and say your piece.
In watching this film, right, continuing the idea of like, what are you willing to lay down your life, or what causes a person to get to that point? Like, I genuinely just paused the movie at this point because I'm taking notes, right, and I'm thinking, what motivates someone, and why is this motivator specifically so compelling? And it's because you have motivators throughout history that are very similar to this one, not exactly like it, but like let's take William Wallace for instance, right? Totally apathetic to the cause of fighting against the crown. What motivates him? It is the brutal assault and murder and butchering of the woman he loves, the one thing that he finds happiness in, right? Because this cause cost him his father, just like this cost Jyn Erso her dad in her mind. He doesn't have a family. His only family is his wife, and she's sticking by him no matter what. And then she gets completely destroyed, like raped, murdered, cut into pieces, pretty much. And this man becomes the rallying cry for the Scottish people, for their war for independence. Like, you have such powerful messages here. There are other characters. I think William Wallace is just such an iconic one to use here. And I think it's pretty applicable. And so it's just the idea that you have these motivators that just so shift a character's outlook on the world and what drives them. And I think it's probably one of the most powerful scenes we get, even in just all of Star Wars, right? It's just this complete shift in a character the motivator is phenomenal. So that said, I don't have anything else on Jyn or Cassian specifically in this movie. They may come up in later characters or themes we talk about.
Sure. No, and that's fair. I mean, honestly, we've covered most of my thoughts on them, and tangentially, we've actually covered a lot, right? We've covered Galen Erso and my thoughts on him. We've covered Saw Gerrera and my thoughts on him. The two things that we haven't really discussed that I do, and we've even talked a lot about the themes and messages of this film, which super integrated, super woven into the plot of this film and how the characters display themselves. So everything's been appropriate up to this point. Haven't talked about our main competition here, right? The person who's countering all of this, which of course is Orson Krennic, right?
Director Krennic,
so would love to talk about him. And there is one side character that I think we do need to discuss, but we'll get to him after the villain. So I would love to hear your thoughts on Orson Krennic.
There's one scene I want to talk about before we finish this podcast, and I think you know which one it is. And it's not just because I'm fanboying over it, although it very much is because of that as well. But talking about...
if I talk about Orson Krennic, that
let's
gonna
save
go to
him
Darth
for
Vader.
let's save him for later then. Let's talk about this side character first.
All right, whatever. Sure. You know what? You want to end this with Darth Vader? We'll end it with Darth Vader.
Well, the movie also ends with Darth Vader, so it just makes sense.
This wasn't my choice. This was his.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Sure. Go ahead. No. I want you to guess who you think the character is.
I'm just going to let's go through the mental process here. I don't think it's the pilot. because I think the pilot is underdeveloped in this movie.
Boda, really?
Yes. And if that's the person you're thinking of, then I don't know how you got there. Is it?
Keep going. I want
Okay.
to hear your analysis.
Okay. Baze is, it's in my mind, I'm probably going to talk about Baze Malbus or Chirrut Imwe. And I think they have an interesting dichotomy, but I'd probably go with Baze if I'm going to be honest, of all the side characters.
Nice. You're not going to go with K2SO?
K2SO is such a fun character. Um, I don't know. I don't know how he functions as a normal side character because he's a robot.
No, I mean, honestly, he wasn't it. I just thought that he's a fun robot. He's the idea of what we wanted with C-3PO and R2-D2 brought
Yeah.
in a fresh light, right? He's his own character. He's not those two characters. He's completely unique, but he's also a robot and very clearly a robot. So,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
he brings this this is another film that is sucks. Thor Love and Thunder, right? It has such a serious tone to it, right? You've got a woman dying of cancer. You've got a man who's butchering gods, but they want to add levity to it. This is a movie about the fate of the galaxy and people dying on a suicide mission. And yet they can bring levity in an effective way through the use of this robot. His just absolutely dry humor. And the thing is he's not trying to be funny. He's just being honest, and that's what makes it so good.
Right.
So that's what I have to say about K2SO. Is I think he is the perfect way for them to bring in humor, and they understood what type of humor to bring into this movie as well.
Yeah, I agree. In regards to your actual guess, though, you were very close. It was Chirrut Imwe, which I will say,
Okay.
for being such an interesting character, I didn't even remember the guy's name without looking it up. Like, the dude is so ubiquitous, but at the same time, you're like, he's kind of this random blind dude who just shows up and hits people with a stick. Like,
Well, they also
what?
don't really say his name very much.
Right, exactly. Now that being said, his ally is there with him and plays an integral part. So I could see how you would come to that conclusion. They embody some of the same ideas, right? So if you want to, I would love to hear your thoughts on those guys, what you think their relevance to the plot was, how they added their own unique value or twist to the plot, and all of that stuff.
So, right, I think Chirrut and Baze they're similar to Cassian and Jin, right? Where you can't have one without the other, really.
Sure. And I guess before we get too far into this, for the audience who are listening, right? These two characters are characters who are helping to, I guess, protect the sanctity of the Jedi temples on this planet. Yeah. And then the temples were destroyed in the Empire's attempt to demolish and find these kyber crystals to use for this new weapon of theirs, right? And in the process, these people who were protecting these temples, Chirrut and his friend, lose their jobs more or less because the temples are destroyed and are homeless people on the side of the street in this city. And that's how Cassian Andor and Jin Urso find them and become part of the team. So they're like Force-ish related characters. Go ahead,
Andrew. So they're similar to Jin and Cassian, although I guess the argument can be made Jin doesn't necessarily need Cassian for her story to develop. But there is so much going on with these two characters that I don't think many people catch even in this movie, right? But it's through little tidbits of dialogue you're able to pick up on this, through little actions and subtle gestures that they make throughout the movie, right? Most people, when you ask them about Chirrut, oh, he's a blind guy who can't really use the Force but believes in it. Who's Baze? He's a Hawaiian guy with a machine gun. That's like the depth of the character development you're going to get out of most people, at least from what they take away from it. What I'm taking away from these characters, right? You have two people who were guardians of this temple. And up until this point, we haven't. This is another reason this movie's so great, right? You get to see these factions within Star Wars that have not been explored at all up until this point. And this is yet another one of those factions that they represent, right? Jin represents a faction that has become disenfranchised with the rebellion. Cassian is this faction of the rebellion that doesn't actually stand for this like altruistic good that we've become accustomed to. These characters are representing a faction that believe in the Force as a religion, but have no access to it in the terms of the abilities that Jedi's and Sith were able to wield. And so Chirrut Imwe, right, is this acolyte, if you will. He is this individual that strongly believes in the power of the Force in the way that like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon talked about it, right? It's this power that just exists. It exists in all of us. It flows through us. And he has not become disenfranchised with the Force. He continues to believe in it to this day, to the extent that he is blind, but he has this faith that his time will come when it is meant to come, and the Force will decide that for him, right? And he has that line, "I'm one with the Force is with me." And he is completely fearless in all things that he does. Now, I think there's a super powerful message for like how we ought to act as Christians in this too, even though this is the Force and not, the creator of the universe. And I know a lot of people will look at Star Wars and say, oh, it's like dualistic and he's taking from like Hindu religion and stuff. I don't think that means you can't draw Christian themes from these movies. And I think that Chirrut Imwe probably does a better justice to Christianity on the big screen than a lot of these Christian movies that are put out there. Even though it wasn't necessarily intentional. So Chirrut Imwe's character, I think, is meant to represent, right? Character who has this faith in this being or this entity, the Force, and it dictates the way he goes about his life. You have this contrast with his friend Baze. I personally find Baze's character more interesting than Chirrut's because of the contrast here. And Baze, there's this one line in the movie where Chirrut says Baze used to be the most devout followers of the faith. Baze represents the character who's similar to Jin, has become completely disenfranchised with the Force. In his mind, if the Force is so strong, how does the Empire come into existence? How do the Jedi not even see the Empire rise up and just get decimated? Like, how is this temple that is supposed to be so holy to the Force get completely desecrated by the Empire, stripped of all that is worthwhile within it? Where is the Force when I need it? He represents the Christian, right, who sees all of this pain and suffering around them and loses faith. They lose this idea, right?
Well, if God is so good, how can all this pain and suffering exist in the world?
Exactly. He is no longer the bright-eyed, little happy-go-lucky believer in the Force. He has seen the worst of the worst. And at this point, he is just there to protect his friend. He's like, you're an idiot. You're walking into danger. I'm going to be the person who saves you, not the Force. And he comes to the point at the end of the movie where he kind of gets it. You don't get the full-on, like, Cassian, Andor, Jyn, Erso, where they have a full conclusion to their arc, right? But he isn't given the time to do that because he dies, which is another reason. It's great, right? Some characters don't get to fully develop because they die before they can come to those conclusions,
Sure.
which is just the reality of the way the world works. But I think they're very compelling as characters. I think they also serve as a great representation of this other faction and multiple types of people within that faction too, because you get the extreme opposite end, and yet they remain friends for different reasons, right? Sure, it's just like, if you're gonna stick around, you're gonna stick around. Baze is like, if I don't stick around, you're dead, bro.
Right.
So, and right, you have a very physical representation of their levels of faith in the Force, right? Chirrut carries a stick that has a sniper rifle on it, and he's blind. Can't really use a sniper rifle very well.
Right.
Baze carries a machine gun.
Right, exactly.
That does massive amounts of damage.
Right.
And so both in their dialogue, in their personas, as well as the very physical representation of their characters and the type of weaponry they carry with them, it's just very well done in how they interact with the faction they're meant to represent.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's also just the whole ideas that you get with him is this idea of, and to be honest, Baze, like Baze, his character, I didn't even catch the whole idea of he used to be the most devout one. I do think that adds a ton to his character, right, and provides a huge contrast to his arc in a way that I actually didn't even see. So I love that analysis. In regards to Chirrut, I think that his relation to the Force is interesting, right? Just in regards to, uh, he believes very strongly in this thing that he's not getting this intense amount of power from, right? He's not healing people or holding a lightsaber or force pushing people or anything like that. He just has come to fully believe in this and invest himself fully in this religion that he comes to hold to. And you see that in his prayers that he's making and all of that stuff. There's a sense in which he's overpowered in a small sense in this movie. And I think that if he was the main character, I really wouldn't like him because it's just like it almost feels like plot armor, right, for a
Well,
character.
I think that's the idea too.
And yeah, that is the idea. Is that he's this character who just can't be beat, and that's the point. Is that he believes so strongly in this idea, and this idea is truth. It is the truth, and so it holds to him and protects him and guides him in what he's supposed to do. Even though he's a blind man, in some ways he can see better than anyone else can, as he's fighting these people who should be able to just shoot him point blank range, right? So. There's a sense in which, like, it's speaking to a broader understanding of faith and what it means to have faith. But even just beyond that, I mean, yeah, he because he wasn't the main character, I think the message he was speaking to was a lot more palpable. I think the movie would get very boring if he was the main character. But
yeah. Well, also, I just want to say, oh, go ahead. Actually.
No. You're good.
You finish your thought. I was watching this movie and I just went, he's literally just the rebellion's version of Stonewall Jackson.
Yeah. Well, okay, true. He's just walking like, around like, if I die, I die. Oh, look, I didn't die yet. I guess I want to keep going. So
yeah, exactly. Like there's appointed a man wants to die, and after that, the judgment. And it clearly it wasn't my time to die yet, bro.
Right, basically.
And you have that dialogue between Baze and him where he's like, I am one with the Force, and he's like, no, you're one with my gun, and it's protecting your life right now.
Right.
And he's like, well, the Force brought your gun there, so
yeah.
It's like no winning.
Right. And he sounds like the insane guy who's just like, oh, I'm going to justify my belief no matter what in that moment. But then you see that come to a full conclusion, which actually takes Baze to agree with him by the end of the film, where he walks over to the handle and flips the handle as the blind man who can get to that moment where they need that handle switched, right? They need the lever to be pulled or pushed in this case in order to even complete the mission. If one thing fell through, which just speaks to the out of the frying pan into the fire of this film, done so well, but like if one thing fell through, this mission fails. They lose. The rebellion is done. Like that is what's on stakes in this film, and the stakes are so high, and at the drop of a pin, everything's over, right? And it comes down to this blind man walking over to a lever and pushing it, right? And the whole time he's saying, I am one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me, right? And it's speaking to like his faith as he walks forward into this moment and believes that he is being guided by it to do the right thing. And it's a testament to his friend as he realizes that the Force is real in this hypothetical universe known as Star Wars, and it works, and he ends up succeeding in helping the rebellion to fight back. And this idea that, there is this great evil in the universe, and all the forces of the universe can be pushing against you to stop you in your path toward righteousness, right? But at the end of the day, the Force is working for you, that even in these small moments you could fight back, and it will, in the end, prevail. Even if you only see it in the smallest of moments, that smallest of moments build into a greater hope until the full culmination comes when the Death Star is destroyed, and then the Death Star is destroyed again, and peace is brought back to the galaxy, etc., etc. Cue episodes 4, 5, and 6, and the full culmination of George Lucas's work, right? Cue a parallel in other religious beliefs. I'll leave it at that, but Christianity has a strong parallel there. I think it's appropriate. Like, and this kind of goes back to a more fundamental idea of what I believe is that you good films can't get away from manifesting truth, and that is seen even in this film, even in the pagan philosophy of like the Force, if you will, right? So, which is completely made up, but it still speaks to broader truths about what it means to have faith and all these other things. So, I thought their characters were very interesting, added a very unique nuance about what it means to have a cause that you believe in, and a fervency to that, and a faith behind that pushes it beyond the bounds of even what Jin and Cassian believe in this film. So
yeah. I do also, just real quick, I think this film really thrives, and it just thrives in so many areas, right? It thrives in raising tensions and exploring different factions and bringing in the religious element of Star Wars without actually bringing in the Jedi, which is something that far too often Disney relies on as the IP of, oh, the Force and lightsabers. But this movie and Andor, ironically, happen to be the two where you don't really get that at all. Like, you get Darth Vader towards the end, but you don't get Jedi and the Force as being like this major theme throughout the entire movie, right? This is just a movie set within the Star Wars universe. That said, though, I think another way it really thrives is the use of so many different types of characters. You have these Force acolytes. You have a defecting pilot who we don't even get a ton about, but he's just there. Like, this is it's just an addition to the plot. You get a reprogrammed Imperial droid. You get a desensitized civilian at this point who wants nothing to do with the rebellion and comes to love it and fight for it. You get Cassian Andor, who's just a cog in the machine. You even get the differences between the rebellion leaders, right? You have Admiral Raddus, the Admiral Akbar of this movie, if you will, who is the dissenter among all of the other rebel leaders, who's like, no, we should do this because rebellions are built on hope. Even if we're fighting on a hope and a prayer, this is something worth fighting for. And then you get the rebellion leaders who are just like, life is expendable, we don't care. You get the character of Galen Erso, who lives with his morals to his dying breath. He holds to them no matter what. You just have all of these different elements in play that just add so much flavor to this movie, if you will, that make it so enjoyable to watch. And it's like, by the end, you're like, oh, the movie's over. I didn't even, where did those 2 hours go? Whereas I watched the Minecraft movie and I'm like, this cannot end sooner. We're only 20 minutes in and I want to shoot myself. So
that's tough. I'm sorry you wasted 2 hours of your life.
Yeah.
And
anyways,
$20.
Yeah. Anyways, don't go see that movie. I don't think we're ever going to review it because it's not even worth our time.
It's not even worth the 20 seconds we gave it here.
Yeah, true. That said, I think we can move on to the villains now.
Yes. Would love to hear your thoughts on Orson Krennic. And that's it.
Krennic is such a good villain, too. And this movie doesn't, like, fumble. It's like, the one place it fails is the revelations, but I don't even think that's a fail. They just don't do them. And it's not necessary for the movie to be great, right?
No, 100%. I agree.
And so with the villains, it's on point. Like, even though they CGI in Grand Moff Tarkin, like, his character adds so much tension for Krennic, and then Krennic goes crying to Vader, and Vader's like, "Bro, shut up."
Right. Even the Vader scene is not even like a him crying per se. He looks like he's afraid to lose his job and potentially die at the hands of this man. And then he even says as much. He's like, wait, like, so I'm still in charge? You know?
Yeah,
and he was surprised. He's like, oh, okay, cool. That's legit. And then Vader's like, Krennic... yeah, you're this close to dying, so shut up. Get to work.
Yeah.
You know?
I think Krennic is like, he's this character who wants to make a name for himself. And I almost see him as a Frankenstein type character. Victor Frankenstein specifically, just so for the audience you're not confused. Frankenstein refers to the scientist, not the monster. Um, and in Shelley's book, Frankenstein, his character, what we're supposed to get from him is that the pursuit of ambition comes with costs. And it's Krennic's entire purpose in life, right? We get the opposite side of the coin with him, whereas everyone else is searching for a purpose, and their purpose has to end up being this cause that is the rebellion. Krennic's cause is this pursuit of ambition, and without that pursuit, he has nothing. And I think that's why he feels so threatened by Tarkin, right? If Tarkin takes this away from him, he has nothing. He is nothing. And so he's fighting for it with everything that he has, even to the point of confronting Vader, right? And you get this. Oh, Vader's done so well in this movie. Just the sheer horror that people feel in his presence, even the Imperials, and it's done well in 4, 5, and 6, like we've talked about, right? Vader just being in their presence sends shivers down their spine, right? And when he's first introduced, you don't even see Vader. You see his silhouette in this smoke, and you just see Krennic's face is just like he's like mentally preparing for the a moment, this event, this pivotal event in his life where he's going to confront this nightmare of a creature, right? People don't
Oh
even
crap!
yeah, people don't know that Vader is Anakin. Like, I think only Palpatine and Tarkin know that up until like people are revealed. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No. I'm curious. Have you done the VR headset game Vader Immortal?
Yes, I have.
So that like if you've ever done, I'm not a huge like VR guy. I think my eyes get tired really quickly on that stuff. But I will say that game is great just for giving you a perspective of like if Darth Vader were a real person, what would they be like? And then they put him, at least a foot taller than you, and you look up at this man and go, "Oh crap. I am about to lose my mind because this man is about to murder me." So, like, they do very good in the VR world at doing that, and that's the impression you get in this film is that this
Yes.
great leader of the Empire is being faced with this Dark Lord, and this Dark Lord is truly terrifying to him, which just adds to the terror of who Darth Vader is. So, Andrew's favorite character, getting some kudos.
I have like low key had moments where I've almost bought a VR headset just for that game.
That's insane. That's pretty
I've
crazy.
played through it once, and I've just been like, "Holy cow!"
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad this is only available for VR headset because you have to play it on a headset. You cannot play this on a controller. You can't play it on a computer because it requires you to be fully immersed in who Darth Vader is and how the rest of the Star Wars universe sees him, because this man is a terrifying beast. That said, going back to Krennic, we'll get to Darth Vader more later. Just needed fanboy there. As Maverick is clearly doing too, because he's just awesome. Maybe not as much as me though. But Krennic's character, right? Like I said, his entire identity is founded in this building that is the Death Star. And you get that even from the beginning of the movie, right? And I think one of the other ways they really build up his character too is the use of the Death Trooper, which I don't know if you caught this, but those black stormtroopers that he uses, the Death Troopers, are like the best of the best that the Empire has to offer. And the fact that he has a guard of Death Troopers is like, okay, this man is important. The fact that he wears white, he is important. It distinguishes him from the rest of the Imperial troops, right?
Right.
Because what do the Imperials wear up to this point for Star Wars? People who have just casual viewers who have watched Star Wars movies, they wear like standard. The colors in the uniforms are based off of German World War I uniforms. They're like this brownish green, dark colors, right? It is very strongly contrasted by Krennic's just completely white uniform with black boots. He's even got a cape. Like, this man is decked out. His ego is massive. And he's building the Death Star. And in his mind, he doesn't even care that it's killing billions of people. He just cares that this weapon is awesome and watch me blow up stuff. And so yeah, I think his character's great. And then also just the Frankenstein parallels with him looking up in the sky as the Death Star looms overhead and he sees his creation bringing about his own demise is, chef's kiss.
Oh,
So good.
The irony and the full arc, right? I love a good twist in regards to thematically, not a huge plot twist, but just a thematic twist where your arrogance becomes your undoing. Amazing,
Yes.
Loved it.
Yep. So those are my thoughts on Krennic. I think the way his story goes, he fights so hard for the creation of this weapon, only for it to literally blow him into oblivion, and for Tarkin to take control of this Death Star.
Well, it also is, I think, somewhat ironic that this person who is so focused on ambition and his own achievements and how good he looks, the harder and harder he fights to look good and cover his bases, if you will, where he looks suspicious or shady and not really doing what he needs to get done, the more that he actually gets exposed, right, as the story progresses, right? So the harder he tries to fix things, the worse things get for him, is kind of the idea you get with this ambitious plot twist until it turns completely on its head and he ends up getting demolished by the very thing he ended up building. So, yeah, I mean, it fully manifests itself, and I love the foreshadowing that they built into this film with Darth Vader, where he's on the floor choking, and Darth Vader says, "Be careful not to choke on your ambition," right? And guess what? He more than chokes on it. He eats the whole
He takes the whole
pie
thing
as he dies, So
yeah.
It's great. I mean, once again, we've showered this thing with praise thematically. We can't get much more on this, but even on the villains arc, they just do so well. It's like you see something like this and you're like, wow, Disney's amazing. And then you watch basically anything else that's come out from Disney in the last 15 years and you go, brothers and sisters of the universe, what on earth is wrong with you? So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Even all of the other Disney shows, like Book of Boba Fett, what on earth?
Gosh,
the Ahsoka show, the Acolyte show, absolutely abysmal. Should not exist. Like these things, you're like watching it, going, how do we go from this amazing, like not even just top tier Disney made Star Wars? This is like top tier Star Wars content to this garbage. So, but now on to my favorite part.
I was going to say, I was just going to move on and say, were you satisfied with the film?
This movie's so great because it gets you to become attached to these characters that you have known for like less than an hour and a half. And then it just rips them from your hands. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh my gosh. But guess what? They stay dead.
Wow. That is crazy for Disney. That's true.
Yeah, although, given the fact that people could survive lightsaber stabs, I wouldn't be survived if they outlive a Death Star blowing up their planet at this point. So, anyways, each of these characters' deaths, too, is so impactful to the mission because each of them giving their lives is to continue the mission forward. Without them giving their lives, the mission fails, right? You have K2SO giving his life so Jyn and Cassian can get the plans. You have the pilot, Bodhi, going into the ship to connect the transmission line so that they can send the plans out. You have Chirrut Imwe giving his life to hit the button, right? And then Cassian and Jyn kind of survive by the skin of their teeth, only to be watching the horizon just explode in their faces and envelop them in darkness. All of this to get these plans to the ship. And this scene is so good because it continues that same idea of these people giving their lives without hesitation just to hand it off to the next guy being cut down by Darth Vader. And it's like, holy cow, these people are like, it's just, wow, it's so good.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
like you get
even
Darth Vader.
backing up for a
Go ahead.
second, right? The space battle itself, you basically see the entire Rebel fleet
Yeah,
demolished in a matter of 30 minutes or an hour because
yeah,
they believe so strongly in completing this one mission, right? And they're like, "Oh, we're going to get these plans to the people. We're going to get away." And it's a small little ship drops out of the other ship and speeds away in the
yep,
vague hope that they will escape with the plans, right?
yep,
This is the impetus for Star Wars Episode 4. And if you watch Star Wars
yep.
Episode 4, right on the back of this film, that's like high pressure stakes for Princess Leia, low key, like
Which
this
I,
is
fun
no
fact, I
small
did.
deal.
Which is why when she tells Darth Vader, like after watching this, and she tells Darth Vader, "This is a diplomatic vessel," he's just like, "Be gone, woman! You're so full of it."
I know your lies.
You can just see Darth Vader's face in that mask.
Okay, there you go. That was good. That was good.
Anyways, you even get this before the fleet is destroyed, right? With that squad of X-wings, the Blue Squadron, that entire squad gets obliterated because of that planetary shield, right? They fly through the shield, knowing it can close at any moment and blow up their ship, which it does for the last one. I think only like a handful of them get through, just to provide the crucial air support to the rebels down on the planet's surface, right? All of these pieces, the tension is raised so well in this movie that any one of these people failing at their mission causes it to just, it doesn't function. It doesn't work. And it's done in such a way that even though the plans get to Princess Leia somehow, you have no idea how that happens, and you're sitting there losing your mind as each of these characters dies one after the other. You're like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I actually was thinking that as I was watching it this last time. I was like, man, I know that everyone dies at the end of this film because I've seen it before, and I know what happens. But dang, why is my knee like bouncing up and down right now?
yes, you're like leaning
crazy.
forward in the edge of your seat, like, oh my gosh, no, don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you just get like they get on that ship. They're well, that's the Darth Vader scene, right? Is they're boarding that tiny vessel just to get away, and it's like, okay, if we can at least get these plans on the ship, we're good. And you think you're fine, but oh no, now we get Darth Vader, and that hallway scene is like the culmination of all of that tension, and it's Darth Vader. It's like you couldn't pick a better way of doing it too, and the way the scene works, like the darkness, the lightsaber turning on, the brutality of him just cutting through these people. These fools don't stand a chance in hell against this guy. He is just slicing them, butchering them through a door, and these guys, like, you can see it too. Like, these actors, these guys deserved a pay raise because these guys are like,
All right,
like
Andrew,
if
calm
you
down.
watch the scene, their hands are like shaking. You can see it in their non-verbal communication on screen. They are terrified.
Frame by frame analysis.
I've watched that scene. I think I've watched that scene more than any other scene in a movie.
That's crazy.
I remember seeing that in theaters and going, oh my gosh, I thought the best of the movie was over already. Leaving that film, I remember it took me like a solid 30 minutes to go, oh, wait a minute, that movie was about the rebellion. And I just remember that feeling, like getting back to the house going, oh, wait, that's right, Cassian Andor was in that movie. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Okay. Shut up.
And
You
Darth
got
Vader.
a little too far off the side tangent here. I mean, I will admit that like that ending scene does build Darth Vader up. It fulfills expectations, right? If you hadn't seen Darth Vader before, him choking the key villain of Krennic without even looking at him shows him to be a fearful villain, and then you see that manifest when he's cutting them down the rebels like they're pieces of cake that he's about to serve at a birthday party, right? So he's fully manifest as the ultimate villain well in that scene, and and you see the terror of the characters. I'd agree, until the one just gives up hope. He's like, just take it before he kills me.
Yeah, he just like gets the door open to crack and he just shoves it through. He's like, get it out of here. Yeah. I'm gone. I'm done for.
Right.
And like the way that they set up episode 4 too, great. Because like you have Darth Vader, you can tell he is desperate, right? Because in the previous times he's been shown, he is just calm, collected, barely even moves a muscle. You see him like raise his hand to choke someone. This man is moving every part of his body to get through this hallway and cut through these guys to get those plans. So you sense the urgency even from him. And then just, even though he's wearing a mask, you can just see how absolutely ticked off he is that this ship escaped his grasp. And he's just standing out in space with those stormtroopers like, gosh dang it.
Right. Well, you even see that portrayed in the next film, if you will, where he goes, "You are a rebel spy and a traitor. Get the crap out of here, dude. You're done. I don't want to see your face." And then he chokes out her assistant, right?
Yeah. And then the thing that's crazy is like that opening scene for 4 when you see Vader, right? You see him yelling. You don't see him yell ever again in 4, 5, and 6. It is the only time we see Darth Vader raise his voice and show like this just pure rage at people through the use of his voice. It's not like he's raging using the Force or his lightsaber. He's just pissed off.
Right. Well, no, he's disciplining his daughter in that moment, so it was a teaching moment.
Yeah, so that's what my dad says.
I don't even know how to take that.
Joke.
Yeah, I think Andrew's a little too much for this podcast.
You have to admit that scene in Rogue One is enough to watch by itself. Like that itself.
Yeah, I'd watch that scene by itself. I may have already watched that scene by itself in the past, but it's
just
good.
Don't love it as much as me. Like,
yeah, I'm not fanboying over Darth Vader every other minute.
Like, I feel like a scene Maverick really likes is like the Aaron Yeager revealing to his father and getting him to kill the what's the family's name? I don't know why I'm blanking. The Rice family.
I wasn't gonna say it.
Yeah, I know you weren't. That scene for Maverick is like this level for me. Like, that man will probably watch that scene on repeat. Yeah, he's not even denying it. Which I'm not gonna lie, great scene. I would probably watch it just as much as him.
It's pretty impressive,
Yeah. I personally like the Beast Titan being felled by.
Okay, well, this isn't about Attack on Titan. This is about Rogue One, and I think at this point we have given it all the kudos it can have. It's been given the bow tie on the top. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a great film, truly phenomenal. I don't know what else to say except that's the pod. So we hope you all enjoyed.
Go watch this movie. This is one movie where you better watch it.
Otherwise, Andrew will haunt you in your sleep. So
Darth Vader will.
That. Cue the scene from Back to the Future. So,
on the planet Vulcan.
Yes. Talk about a knight in shining armor. Anyways, that's the pod. We'll be back as we always are next week. We'll see you all then.